Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, if I could summarize Halloween in 4 slides, those 4 slides look like this. It's not going to be fun. What you just saw there animating is in the upper left. This is just looking out through Friday at 1 a.m., total accumulated snowfall. We can see that stretching from parts of eastern Iowa, northeastern Missouri through northern Illinois, getting into Michigan. We have the potential for picking up a few inches of snow in that corridor. Secondly, as the main low pressure system goes racing on off to the north and east, it will drag a cold front that will be moving over the Appalachian Mountains this evening, kicking off the possibility for some strong to severe storms in this corridor. You're looking at our multivariate thunderstorm index here, and the values are getting quite high in that area. For a lot of folks here in the eastern third of the United States, it's going to be very wet. You can see in the bottom left total accumulated precipitation through 1 a.m. Friday morning, and some locations easily picking up over an inch of rainfall. And for almost the entirety of North America, the temperatures behind the system are brutally cold for this time of year, such that by trick-or-treating this evening, the main cold frontal boundary will be stretched right in through here. We have widespread 30s and 40s hitting much of the south, and then north of there, you're going to be seeing temperatures that are extremely cold for this time of year. In fact, if you're in one of these areas that's having some rough weather, may I suggest this particular solution to your trick-or-treating problems. I don't know who to give credit for this particular video because it was widely shared yesterday on social media, but I'm just going to give the state of Wisconsin credit for it. Here we are in Oconomowoc, and I love the video because here's just a group of folks that know how to get the job done to keep themselves out of the elements. So I thought you might find that funny early this morning. But what's not funny are these temperatures. Now this was as of 4 a.m. When I look at this map, I feel like I'm seeing for the western 2/3 of the United States a temperature map that I normally show you like in January. Some of these temperatures are brutally cold behind the main frontal boundary, which at 4 a.m. was stretched right in through this corridor. So just to show you how cold things are, each dot on this map is a location that is approaching or surpassing an official cold record. So this is going to be some bitterly cold air that's tucked away out here in the central plains, but getting over to the Four Corner states as well. Okay, all hazards weather map. What are the main things we're watching today? Well, as that cold air advances, we have hard freeze warnings out for a large section here of the Mid-South, getting over to the Ohio River Valley. And this extends all the way down into the southern parts of Texas as well. This is going to hit cotton pretty hard here. Winter weather advisory stretching from eastern Iowa through northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and into Michigan. And as the system wraps itself up here on the east coast and the northeast, very, very strong winds in addition to all that heavy rain that we're going to be seeing today. In California, we're still dealing with much of the same problems we've been discussing now for a few weeks. We have red flag warnings, high wind warnings, and where that cold air is tucked away back there in the mountains in the Mojave Desert, we've got freeze warnings out. So another day where we're anticipating the weather conditions causing deteriorating conditions for fire threat here in Southern California. Okay, severe weather. If you are along the East Coast today, I do want you to pay close attention to this map and be watching the radar this evening. We're looking here at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook for later on today. We have an enhanced risk across a large part of the Mid-Atlantic getting up into the Northeast. So we'll watch for the timing of the system as it rolls through here, and let's take a look at what our high-resolution models are picking up on. So this just went through middle of the day today on Thursday, so you can see the main frontal boundary advancing through Tennessee, Kentucky, all the way down through parts of Alabama, getting to the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to watch the main frontal boundary right in through here as it moves over the Appalachian Mountains into this evening to kick off our severe weather. Now this map is valid 8 p.m. Thursday evening, so we might be able to get a lot of our trick-or-treating in here. I'm talking about the eastern halves of Virginia, North and South Carolina, but as that front sweeps through here, it does have the potential late this afternoon and this evening to be producing some very strong thunderstorms. The bulk wind shear environment on the lower levels of the atmosphere is very suitable for this. We're strongly forced with a big front that's coming through, and there's plenty of moisture, so keep an eye out in this area. Meanwhile, to the north of this system, a lot of very heavy rain spreading through the northeast, and on the backside it will be cold enough to give us a changeover to snow in combination with some very, very windy conditions moving through parts of eastern Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and then eventually over into Ohio and Pennsylvania. So we can see that system wrapping itself on through there. This is now getting late into the evening. This is 8 p.m. on Thursday. Very windy conditions. And you might be wondering, well, why is there some rain showing up in here? Well, the lake is still warm, so it's moderating the boundary layer with some warmer weather. and therefore we're getting some rain in here. So it's too warm for snow, but certainly the rest of Michigan, I think, is going to be dealing with some snow showers out of this. Now behind this, as our deeper upper level trough sits in this area, we do bring scattered snow showers here from Montana into the north central plains throughout the early morning on Friday and in through the day on Friday, that eventually gets over into the Great Lakes states. So this is now by Friday evening. You can see that light snow moving here around that upper level trough sitting basically over north central part of North America. Okay, let's summarize all of this in two maps. On the left, I have the GFS, and on the right, I have the European. We're looking out over the next 4 days, so this gets us out to Sunday evening. Very good agreement overall in the position and timing of the system in both models, and also in the rainfall amounts. So you can see here your area kind of line up with what we're seeing in terms of precipitation. Remember, on the back side of this, we're watching coming out of the Canadian prairies, lighter snow showers here throughout the day on Friday, getting into Saturday. So models in pretty good agreement through the weekend, but there is some differences beyond that time period. And a lot of those differences are sparked by the fact that the jet stream is blocked up and split in the Gulf of Alaska. So quite strong bit of the jet stream flow moving across the central Pacific here, but you can see the split flow happening right now basically in the Gulf of Alaska with the polar branch, what I just drew there, and the subtropical branch down here. Now you know we've been talking about this for a while. Where these come together is where we have our most adverse weather, and where they're split with a high over low pattern, that is a pattern that is quite dry, and it is a stagnating pattern, which is going to mean that our models are not going to handle well the progression over the next few systems because of this. So this is lowering our predictability in the longer term. So let's talk about that. What I want to show you here is that the ensembles are at least pretty good at picking up on the bigger features. So moving through the next few days, the main story for the eastern half of the country is going to be the development of this deeper trough sitting here over the weekend, and that is bringing in some very cold air. We will occasionally see a few little shortwaves working their way around the backside. We're going to talk about what those do in terms of producing clipper systems that come through the northern part of the United States. But I kind of want your attention here out on the west, where we have this wave breaking event here in the Gulf of Alaska heading up toward Alaska. High over low pattern through early Tuesday of next week. And what I want you to notice is that as I progress past the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, we do finally see some change in this overall, well, what's quite a very stagnant pattern. One, our deeper trough tries to move toward the Hudson Bay and send a piece of it here over south of Greenland. That could allow, by the time we get out past the 11th, 12th, 13th, for some moderation in the temperatures here in the lower 48. But maybe a bit more significant than this for much of the U.S. is this right here. If we can finally break down that high over low pattern such that we can shove a trough closer to the west coast, this means that beyond the 10th of November, we might start to increase our chances of bringing in some precipitation here along the west coast of the United States, which we are desperate for in that area. But before we get there, this is day 4 through 10. So what we're looking at here in day 4 through 10 is this is starting next Monday, getting you through next week. The European ensemble on the right, GFS on the left. Overall, pretty good agreement in what's going on here. Initially, we're clearing things out, drying things out. We're going to have some clipper systems that sneak through the north central plains, but we do bring a resurgence of moisture back in. Both models kind of seeing it a little bit different on the timing and location. What I will say is this, getting into next week, I don't see any just major big systems like the one we just saw moving across the country. So it's a little bit more of a benign pattern. We need to be watching for when this finally gets here to the west coast of the United States, because much of next week is very, very dry for the west coast of North America overall. So let's kind of take a look at what we're anticipating here. As I play this forward, there goes system number 1. Let's just get all the way out to Friday evening here, because we've seen the details up to this point. Widely scattered snow showers, very windy conditions across the central part of the United States here. Now what we notice is that getting us into the day on Sunday, big dome of higher atmospheric pressure, that's the cold air that has really penetrated here all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And getting us into early Monday morning, what we do need to watch is our first clipper coming around. So some snow here butting up against the Rocky Mountains, but little clipper coming into parts of North Dakota. And as it squeaks its way through, this is now Monday evening, getting into Tuesday morning, we could be bringing in some precip that again comes into this corridor. By the way, on Tuesday, the European model does have quite a bit more shower activity in through this area. Just it's better at advecting or moving some of that moisture a little bit farther to the north. But both models agree higher pressure does move in behind this. Now, where they begin to disagree is next Wednesday getting into Thursday. You see, the GFS is keeping a ridge much farther back here. Remember last week when I said the GFS was the more progressive of the two models? Not this week, or not this upcoming week. It's keeping the ridge much farther back here over Montana and allowing a little low to develop here. That means between the two, we were going to have to watch for next, Wednesday night into Thursday for the development of possibly a little band of snow into this area. This is not showing up in the European at this particular point because the European is taking this ridge and expanding it much farther to the south, which means after that particular time period, things diverge quite a bit between our two models. And that means a lot for this rainfall next Thursday in the Mid-South, getting back over into Texas as well. So I'm going to show you those differences in a few minutes, but I also want you to notice this. By the time we get out to the 10th, you can see that the GFS is much more aggressive at bringing in more precipitation here across the west coast of the United States. So that is a substantial change that we definitely need to be talking about. So let's just look at this Sunday through next Saturday. And the model differences show up right in through this area. Remember, the GFS, which is now the slower model midweek next week, keeps more precipitation as it develops this low midweek here, tucked back into Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri, whereas the European model pushes that much farther to the east over Tennessee and Kentucky. The second difference, with the high stagnating here in the GFS, allowing for that low to develop, we have more precipitation in that corridor than the European model does. So those are two of the bigger differences that I'm seeing overall across the central U.S. The other difference is the GFS is not bringing in the heavier precipitation into this area that the European model is. So those are three big differences next week that I want everyone to be on the lookout for. Just to show you that difference again, you see the European broader ridge coming in, shutting down the precipitation for Wednesday into Thursday. The GFS keeping that ridge back here, letting the slow develop, and that is why there's more precipitation in that corridor. So some interesting model differences overall. But I do want to show you this. Let's just focus on the west coast of the United States. We notice that both models are attempting, after we get out here past the 9th, to bring in a plume of moisture off the Pacific Ocean. Now notice when I step you back, do you see here as I play this forward that the general circulation here is clockwise, suggesting a big ridge sitting in that area? We need to get that to spin the other direction, and we finally do. This is the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. By the 10th, we're finally bringing in a push of moisture. Now, for this area, the European model is 2 days later on this arriving. Okay, that's the big difference overall. Okay, so please see those differences. And why this is significant is if we just look here over the last 60 days, I talked a lot about the precipitation in this corridor because over that time period it's been very, very wet, and their harvest efforts into this area have been hampered by that wetter conditions. And here in the Pacific Northwest, even though we were very wet in September and early October, it has turned very dry, and we're still waiting on the return of moisture for California. So that's why I'm really going to be watching November 11th specifically for maybe some changes in the Pacific to finally bring some moisture into that area. All right, so I just want to bring up those points here. What the models do very much agree on here is temperatures. This is looking over the next 5 days at temperature anomalies. Very good agreement on where that colder air is going to be. This is days 6 through 10. Also, very similar pattern here with the coldest axis stretching from the central Canadian prairies into the north central part of the United States, making it feel like midwinter here. And even out to days 11 through 15, you see a very, very similar pattern with warmer conditions here on the western side of the United States, but brutally cold in through this area as we're waiting for this trough to exit here to get over toward Greenland. Now, to show you what this looks like compared to the rest of the world, just notice this. This part of North America, compared to average, is the coldest place on the face of the earth, compared to average. And that seems to be the way things are going over the next 15 days. We have to ask ourselves why, and I want to just rehash a couple things I covered in the long-range update. First, the big climate drivers right now. Indian Ocean dipole reached a peak. We're going to be watching it slowly wane in strength as we move through the end of this year. We've seen warmer water return into this area and also over here, which has been basically taking us back to INSO neutral conditions. but the wind field has been behaving a bit more like El Nino. We've also seen a warm-up in the North Pacific. Well, the warm-up that was there continue, and we have very low sea ice concentration here north of Alaska. Now, overall, our teleconnections are advertising that this corridor is going to continue to see colder weather. But our longer-term models, which we addressed in our long-range update, do suggest that the second half of November may moderate in temperatures a bit. But the teleconnections are a bit at odds with that, okay? Go watch that long-range update if you'd like to get some of those details. What I want to finish with is I want to talk about what this pattern means towards South America. Now, these two maps show us over the next 15 days. When we just take a look at the broader events that have shaped up for the planting of their first crop here in South America, we see the pattern behaving very similar to what it has as of late. And that is, it's been wetter here in parts of the Amazon. We've had a wet quarter that stretched right in through here, and most recently we've started to see more precipitation coming in down here in parts of northern Argentina, Paraná, and Uruguay, those areas. Where it's been very dry, it's been in Minas Gerais, Bahia, Tocantins, and the Goiás area, which is this area, and eastern Mato Grosso has been on the drier side as well. But take a look at these recent precipitation curves. In each one, the smooth line that you see on top here, that would be the normal rate of accumulation of precipitation over the last 90 days. We can see that if we go here into Mato Grosso, it's been recently that the precipitation has come back on. It was a delay, but you can see that the slope of the recent precipitation matches what would be normal. So we've been bringing in the precipitation into Mato Grosso. Where it has been drier, come down here into Mato Grosso do Sul, over into this area. We have had some recent big rainfall events, but overall lackluster performance here in terms of recent rainfall on the broader scale. And to go a little bit farther to the south, this is now valid down here in Paraná. And even though we did get some bigger rainfall events, these longer swaths of drier weather here have still kept us below average on precipitation. So unlike a year ago, the delay in soybean planting here largely caused by the wait on getting some of the rainfall in. We can see that over the next 15 days, we aren't doing anything to help out this region bring in some precipitation. This will most certainly impact corn and cotton, our second crops, and that's why we'll keep a close eye on this and all of those teleconnections for you so that we can understand how precipitation will be changing across the Americas here as we finish out a season. One last thing, don't forget, we do end daylight saving time this weekend, so make sure that you remember to get that extra hour of sleep. All right. With that, I'll go ahead and wrap it up right here. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions thank you for your attention. Have a great end to your week, and we will talk to you again soon. Thank you.